Good morning. Today is Monday, August 14th, 2023. Shalosh Arim Tavdil Lach B'soch Artzacha. There are three cities. God tells the Jewish people, when you enter the land of Israel, there are three cities that you should designate in the land that Hashem is going to give you to inherit, meaning in the land of Israel. Now, we know that these three cities are called Ir Miklat, a city of refuge. I'm going to explain that in a moment. We know that there were three of them on the western bank of the Jordan River, three of them on the eastern bank of the Jordan River, because remember, there were 2.5 tribes that stayed on the eastern bank of the Jewish River. And also, there were 42 cities of the Levium, the Levites, that all served this same purpose of Ir Miklat. So there was a total of 48 cities sprinkled out evenly throughout the land of Israel. And this is the purpose of this city. V'zeh dvar harotzeach. This is what happens when, God forbid, one person takes the life of another. Asher yanu shama, that a person will be able to live there. V'chai asher yake es re'ehu bivli das, v'hu lo soneh lo b'nmol shoshom. This is the place that a person will go when they took someone else's life, but when they did not do so on purpose. It was an accident. They were negligent. There was no hatred. There was no animosity. It was an accident. Some places call this involuntary manslaughter. No ill intent, no argument. An accident happened. There was negligence. So according to Jewish law, if a person committed murder intentionally, then if the conditions are met, the punishment is capital punishment. But if it was done inadvertently, it was an accident, there was negligence, then there is another punishment, and it's called, we send the person to Ir Miklat. Ir Miklat is one of these 48 cities. So you and your whole family have to move there for a certain amount of time, and you have to live there. In effect, you have to go into golus, you have to go into exile. This Ir Miklat is intended to demonstrate the essence of rehabilitation in Jewish law. Because, first of all, we're not talking about somebody so terrible that they actually wanted to kill someone and there were witnesses and they said, I hear you telling me not to do it, I'm going to do it anyway. That's a person that is so evil and wicked, they intentionally want to commit murder. This is not possible for them. They need capital punishment. They just need to be removed from the earth. But a person who is negligent, who is careless, they didn't mean to do it. But they caused the same effect as a terrible murderer. The effect is the same. The victim is dead. But at least for this person, there's a chance of rehabilitation because they didn't mean to do it. So let's have a period of rehabilitation. How are we going to accomplish that? Well, the way we're going to accomplish that is we're going to require them to leave their home, to go into golus, to go into exile in one of these cities, and with their family, so we don't separate families, and we're going to arrange these cities so that the majority of each of the inhabitants of these cities are role models in how to live a careful life, in how to live a life that values the unbelievable gift of life. The Levites, the Levium, were the spiritual teachers of the Jewish people. And so each one of these cities always had to have a majority of people who were role models and a smaller number of people who were being sent there in order to live in a place where they would have positive role models, where they would learn not to act the way they act, to be more careful, not to be negligent. It's an incredible system where we take a group of people who has done something that is has a very terrible consequence, but the Torah decides it is possible to rehabilitate them. They are not intrinsically evil, and will set up this whole structure, 48 cities, that had to have all the functioning of normal cities, just so that these people could live among positive role models and come out of that period as a better person. The purpose of these cities of refuge, a person would go there, surrounded by good role models, and it was a place to make improvements. It was a place to introspect. What did I do to get me here? Why was I careless? Why was I negligent? How do I learn not to do it again? It's a place to make changes. It's a place to be improved. It's a place to make a commitment that my life is going to go on a different, better path once I leave here. Today, in the absence of the Beis HaMikdash, in the absence of the majority of Jews living in Israel, in the absence of the entire comprehensive judicial system according to Jewish Torah law in Israel, we do not have Ir Miklat. We learn about it in this week's Torah portion, but it is not an applicable mitzvah to us. But our sages tell us, perhaps pointing out the fact that we almost always read this Torah portion just before Rosh Hashanah. We'll be reading it during the month of Elul, preparation for Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. Our sages tell us that every one of us needs to build our own private, interior place of refuge. We have to have a place within ourselves that we go to during this month for our own rehabilitation. 1 month a year, we need to enter a different realm within ourselves, to surround ourselves with positive role models, to work on improving ourselves, to look at what we did in the previous year, and maybe it was only accidental, maybe it was only negligent, but how are we going to improve it? How can we grow? How can we improve? How can we get better? What do we have to change? So I want to share with you very briefly one element that is a necessary aspect of this process that the person who committed involuntary manslaughter has to go through in being sent to Golus, to this city of refuge. And it's going to be something that we are going to be able to apply to our own lives as we build our own Ir Miklat within ourselves. 2019, Sivan Rahav Meir, the great Israeli scholar, she accepted a position to spend a year in the United States. And the arrangement was that she would teach at Yeshiva University, and she would lecture all across America and Canada. Of course, you may remember that year got cut off short because when COVID came, she and her family had to go home. But the intention was, and up until COVID, she was with her family living in Israel. In a sense, living in Golus, in exile. She told this story after she had just been in New York for a couple of days. She was working in Yeshiva University, which is in Manhattan, and she was staying in a place in the Five Towns. It's a distance away, and there are trains, inner city trains that take one from the other. So she had to buy a ticket. She went to the ticket counter, and they would not take her Israeli credit card to buy the ticket, so she had to pay in cash. She gave the woman a $5 bill. The woman said the ticket cost $6. So she took out the only other bill she had. It was a $100 bill. The cashier said, "I'm sorry, it's too high. I don't have that kind of change." And she told this story to someone. She says, in Israel, she's not bragging. I'm a professional person. She's a journalist. She's on TV all the time. She interviews the prime minister. She knows how to do things in a professional world. And she goes somewhere new, and she doesn't know the customs, and she doesn't know the language, and she doesn't know the people. And all of a sudden, she can't even buy a ticket on the train. And she said here, she was talking about traveling from Israel to the United States. But it's the same process of a person running away to a city of refuge, to a new place, new people, new expectations, new society. And it's exactly the same thing internally for us. If we want to make changes in our lives, a necessary part of that is going to a new place within ourselves. And you know what that means? She wrote here, everything makes you feel smaller. You're not as strong as you thought. You're not as smart as you thought. And especially when you are sure that you know the answers, you don't always know the answers. And that feeling is an essential aspect of Ir Miklat. When this person committed the involuntary manslaughter and then sent to Ir Miklat, an essential aspect of what that experience is supposed to be is for a person to realize, I don't know who I am. I don't know where I am. I don't know. I've got to relearn everything. The way I drive, the way I walk, the way I move, the way I act to people, I have to relearn it all. Because obviously what I was doing before was not right. So I feel like a person that doesn't know anything. It's a shock to your ego, but that shock to your ego is necessary because a person has to go through a period where they feel, maybe I don't know everything. Maybe I do have to relearn everything from scratch. Maybe what I thought was true is not true. That's when you can start to build yourself back and examine what is true, what is not true, who am I, what am I. That is how this process serves to help improve a person, to build a person back up. She told this story to someone she was traveling with, Rabbi Dr. Stu Halpern, who works at Yeshiva University. And Dr. Halpern told her the following story about Rabbi Dr. Norman Lamm, of blessed memory. Rabbi Lamm was a past president of Yeshiva University. He was the Rosh HaYeshiva, the highest academic, spiritual head of the yeshiva as well. The leader of modern orthodoxy. There's no one else who had a better claim to the title of leader of modern orthodoxy than Rabbi Norman Lamm, an incredible man. Rabbi Lamm himself would often tell the story about his first day at Yeshiva University as president. On his first day, he went to the cafeteria for lunch at Yeshiva University. He picked his food out, he put it on a tray. It's a cafeteria. And he took his tray to the cashier to pay. The cashier wanted to know what to charge him for his meal, so she asked him, "Are you faculty?" And Rabbi Lamm said, "No, I'm not faculty." She said, "Are you a student?" He said, "No, I'm not a student." She said, "Well, are you a visitor?" And he said, "No, I'm not a visitor." So the cashier, who had no idea who this was, the cashier said to him, "So, I guess you're a nobody." And Rabbi Lamm says to her, "You are exactly right. I am a nobody." A necessary condition for making changes in our lives is that I have to reduce my own ego. I have to be a nobody. I have to be willing to say, maybe I don't know. Maybe I am not right. Maybe my certainty is not really appropriate. We have to use these days, leading up to Rosh Hashanah, to place ourselves within our own internal Ir Miklat, city of refuge, and put ourselves in a position where it's all new. We don't know it. We don't know how it works. We have to question our most basic assumptions. We have to realize we are a stranger, an immigrant. We don't know the ways yet. We don't know the customs. We don't know how it works here. Because only when we feel that will we then recognize that we have to start over again. And this time not make the mistakes that we made before. We have to relearn everything. We have to review everything. We have to reconfigure everything so that we don't make the same mistakes that we made before. Mary Oliver wrote a great poem, many, many great poems. Let me keep my distance always from those who think they have the answers. Let me keep company always with those who say, look, and laugh in astonishment and bow their heads. Because in that place, we can grow. My friends, I wish you a great day, and I look forward to hearing and seeing you soon in person.